Hey, what's up everyone? Joshua Partugi here again with another vlog, and in today's vlog, I would like to talk with you about something really important, a pattern that I noticed has been growing amongst developers in a company using Scrum. I noticed there are growing numbers of developers hating Scrum so much, which I think is kind of ironic because Scrum was initially designed to humanize developers developing software products. I didn't know how this trend happened because around 13 years ago, I was attracted to Scrum and became passionate with it because Scrum leverages and humanizes developers working in the software industry. So in today's vlog, folks, I would like to share with you my observation why developers hate Scrum so much. The first and the most common reason why developers hate Scrum so much is because when Scrum is introduced into the company by someone, the developer's opinion was not considered. And here's what's interesting. The developers are requested to change and to use Scrum, but the management does not need to change at all. The management is not involved with Scrum or needs to attend to the developer's concern. This situation made developers think there is unfairness in the company. Not only Scrum was designed to be developer-friendly framework, it was also designed as a management framework. And believe it or not, the Scrum Master is actually a managerial and a leadership role. In Scrum, the management is expected to be involved mainly to inspect and adapt the increment the Scrum team delivers every sprint. The management is also expected to change their leadership style into leading by serving. In Scrum, the management is expected to be proactive and involved. But here's another interesting thing. In a company where the management is involved with the Scrum team, Scrum is actually used by the management as a micromanagement tool. And I have found there are people with project management background who use Scrum for this very reason. Using Scrum as a micromanagement tool is another reason why developers hate Scrum so much. In this kind of context, the people who push Scrum demand certain numbers of velocity to be met by the developers. This is how many developers think that Scrum is not better than Waterfall, and they come to conclusion that Scrum is just a compressed mini Waterfall done iteratively. The only difference they see is the number of features to be completed. Now it is changed to be velocity to be met. Sprint planning is the event that feels like eternity for developers because during sprint planning, they need to make a commitment on how many work items they need to complete or how many velocity they need to hit every sprint. The sprint planning is the event where the contract starts. And in fact, in some companies where Scrum is misunderstood, you can also see someone cajoling the developers during sprint planning, and sometimes that person cajoling the developers is the product owner, even the Scrum Master, which is quite sad. Some tool vendors make the number of work items the developers take as a commitment. Now I think this is where the problem starts because in Scrum, the developers are not committed to the number of work items they plan during sprint planning. The developers are actually committed to the sprint goal. In some companies where Scrum is still misunderstood, the sprint goal is about delivering a certain number of work items or meeting a certain number of velocity rather than about outcomes. Many developers also don't like the daily Scrum, mainly because they prefer to get on with writing their codes. They think that the daily Scrum is so time consuming. But when I look closely, the reason why developers hate the daily Scrum is because it is used as a daily status report meeting. Sometimes to the product owner or even worse to the Scrum Master, and in some contexts to a project manager. In some contexts, the developers were not involved on the timing for the daily Scrum or how it should be done. In Scrum, the daily Scrum is actually not for the product owner nor for the Scrum Master. In fact, it's not even for the project manager. Having the product owner or the Scrum Master or the project manager use Scrum as a daily status report meeting is another reason why developers hate Scrum so much. Daily Scrum is not a daily status report meeting. It is a daily planning session from the developers for the developers to sync up their work. As I mentioned earlier, in an organization where Scrum is misunderstood, sprint planning is an event where the contracts start. In this kind of organization, it is quite common to see people abuse the sprint review as an opportunity to blame the developers when the developers cannot meet the number of work items or velocity that has been cajoled to them during sprint planning. Using sprint review as a blaming session is another reason why developers hate Scrum so much. Now, not only the developers hate the Scrum events that has been used wrongly, they also hate Scrum because the person who is called as the product owner is not really the owner of the product, which is quite ironic. This goes both for internal product development context or in a client-supplier relationship context. And interestingly, the actual product owner quite often is the boss of whoever is sent as the product owner in the Scrum team. Are you confused? Yeah, me too. The irony is when the person who is sent to be the product owner is not business savvy, does not have a long-term vision for the product, and their decisions are easily overridden by people with higher political power. Not only developers hate Scrum because their product owner is only a proxy, they also hate Scrum because their Scrum Master is not a leader who serves with good leadership skills, hence not valuable for the Scrum team. Now, the last reason I noticed is why many developers hate Scrum so much, especially in the ones who are religious with engineering culture, is because Scrum seems to be a step backward as it seems to be neglecting technical excellence. In this kind of context, the developers usually have a misbelief that Scrum is only about delivering as many features as possible, that Scrum is a feature factory and put aside quality. Now, from my observation, this usually happens because the person who pushed Scrum to the developers does not emphasize the definition of done enough, or the person does not have a solid technical background to be able to emphasize the definition of done to the developers. The definition of done is actually where a lot of technical excellence practices should be made transparent. Now, Scrum does not tell the developers the technical excellence practices that they should do, because Scrum is just a framework. Technical excellence should go into the definition of done. And in Scrum, technical excellence actually takes higher priority than completing the number of work items every sprint. If you are developers who are working in a company who claims to use Scrum but notice these patterns I have mentioned in today's vlog, bear in mind that what you're using is not Scrum. If you do notice that you are in a situation where Scrum is misunderstood, I suggest that you get help from a reliable source and get the company to actually use Scrum, like the real Scrum. That is all from me today, folks. Thank you for watching today's vlog. I will see you in my next vlog. Take care and have a great day ahead. Bye, everyone.